Welcome to the Stochastic MLB Strategy Show, and I guess live before lock. We've got lock coming up in an hour, so not going to be able to spend time looking at what pros did yesterday today, because I think we've got a lot to cover. 9 games here. We've just got an hour to do so. So while I would love to always every show start by looking at pros, when it is live before lock, when we've got lock coming in an hour, I think we got to jump right into it. And I think the best place to start here is the pitchers. As you can see on my screen, I've got the top pitchers tool pulled up so we can talk about that a little bit. While you're coming in, by the way, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. Really appreciate your support, and we need it. But let's jump right into it, talk about these pitchers, because we've got so many great pitchers on today's slate. Also makes it hard to talk about bats a little bit. Like, it's hard to find that many ways that you really want to get different when you've got this many great pitchers on the mound. I think if you look at the top stacks tool, Tampa, everybody's going to be focusing on this Tampa stack. I think it's going to be very highly owned, probably one of the worst pitchers at this point in his career. On this slate, Patrick Corbin, just not a very strong pitcher, and it's great weather for bats in Washington. Just everything pointing towards this Tampa stack, but this is MLB DFS, so it's probably going to go a little bit over-owned. Yeah, as you can see, we're projecting for 21% ownership on that Tampa stack, 16% chance of being the top stack. But again, let's go back to the pitchers, talk about who's playing today a little bit. Garrett Cole, I think, pretty clearly the top pitcher on the slate today. He's fully stretched out. He, had a great game last time out, pitched a full game. We know that he's fully stretched out, and he's Garrett Cole. Can't get much better. Can't get much safer than Garrett Cole. I'd imagine if you're playing cash games today, Garrett Cole, the first guy that gets into your lineup there. Jacob deGrom, I don't know if he's fully stretched out. That's the hard thing with deGrom. He was on a pitch limit in his last game. I would imagine he's still kind of ramping up. So clearly has upside because he's Jacob deGrom, but probably not going to be fully stretched out. So clearly not as safe as Garrett Cole here. But still, I think a fine option in GPPs, just because, he doesn't even need to be fully stretched out to rack up a ton of strikeouts. Yeah, Garrett Cole, inconsistent. I mean, he's kind of inconsistent, but he's a damn good pitcher. I don't know that I would call him super inconsistent. Christian Javier, great matchup with Detroit. He's just 8,100 here. Maybe the second cash game pitcher, I would think. Again, I'm not playing cash games, but I would imagine that Christian Javier is a guy that you'd at least consider against Detroit here. Very strong pitcher in a great matchup. So I think that he's somebody to consider here. And then we've just got a bunch of really strong, Dylan Cease, Corbin Burns down at 8,600. Obviously, really tough matchup with the Mets, but at 8,600 price tag for Corbin Burns, pretty interesting there. Shane McClanahan, great season last year. As I said, it is a tough spot for bats in Washington today. The weather is unfavorable to pitchers, but still 8,800 Shane McClanahan looks pretty interesting. Pitchers duel between Jesus Luzardo and Pablo Lopez in Miami, Pitchers Park. They become interesting at these price tags in Miami. You have to kind of consider Pablo Lopez, Jesus Luzardo, Logan Webb, strong pitcher. Aaron Nola down at 7,700 here. Obviously, really tough matchup, and in New York, so it's a tough spot for Aaron Nola. But man, 7,700 Aaron Nola with his strikeout rates, you know that he's got the potential, a very high volatility spot. So somebody you have to consider for GPPs. David Peterson had a pretty 27% strikeout rate last year. Tough spot in Milwaukee, but he's down at 7,200. So as you can see, as I'm going through this, it's like, man, everybody, it's a tough. It's really tough to differentiate in too many spots because we have so many really strong pitchers. And then, of course, at the bottom, we've got Grayson Rodriguez, the top pitching prospect in all of baseball at the Stone Min 4,000. You have to at least consider Grayson Rodriguez, I think, on this slate at 4,000. Who knows how deep he's going to go? This is obviously his major league debut here. So we don't know what to expect from Grayson Rodriguez, but given his pedigree, it's really tough to rule him out when he is 4,000. So my takeaway here is that I'm probably going to be spreading out my pitcher ownership a little bit on this slate. We've talked about it before that I think in general, you look at what pros do in large field GPPs, generally more willing to eat the chalk at pitcher. I think because we have so many strong options on this slate, I'm a little bit more inclined to spread out my ownership because there's a lot of volatility in these pitchers, a lot of pitchers who are great pitchers, but in tough spots. And Garrett Cole, of course, getting a ton of ownership. What do we have him at? We've got Garrett Cole at 41.5% ownership, some negative leverage there, which again, I don't care nearly as much about with pitchers as I do with bats because it's more about the safety, the floor of the pitchers that I care about. Like if Garrett Cole can get to, 27 fantasy points, and a couple other pitchers get to 29. Even though he's more expensive, it's probably not the end of the world for me. I'll probably take that 27, and clearly has upside for 35 plus for Garrett Cole there as well. So I get it. I get why people want to play Garrett Cole, but I think that in this particular spot, I'm probably going to cap myself at like 30% on the pitchers and just really spread it out, because I think that there are so many interesting pitchers on this slate, and going to different prices kind of allows you to get different with bats as well. So playing a guy like Grayson Rodriguez, projected for just 1.3% ownership, that is fascinating to me. 1.3% ownership. I don't think that's going to be, I don't think that's going to hold up. I think this is it's really hard to project what ownership is going to be on a pitcher in his major league debut. But so I imagine this number comes up. But again, 38.8% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher on the slate, 5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Have to have some interest in Grayson Rodriguez. It's also, so I kind of think all of the new rules this year in baseball make strikeout pitchers even more important, and kind of make it harder on ground ball pitchers. So in general, I'm going to be trying to target stacks against ground ball pitchers, I think a little bit more this year, just because with ground ball pitchers, with the changes to the format in baseball, the bigger bases, all the changes they made are going to make it tougher on ground ball pitchers, which also makes it a little bit of a better spot for bats against them. If they can get on base, then they're more likely to steal bases. So I think often I am going to be targeting ground ball pitchers a little bit more this season, but it is a little bit tough on this slate. We have so many great pitchers, great strikeout pitchers on this slate. Thomas Roan, where is the show where they go through each game? Yeah, so we're not going to be doing that until basketball season is over. We do that occasionally. We have those shows, but we're until basketball season is over, that's kind of more of a main focus. I'm not going to be going game by game here. We also only have an hour. It would be tough to go game by game. But yeah, those shows will be coming back in just like a couple weeks once basketball winds down a little bit. But here I'm just going to go through what our tools tell you. I think that this is extremely valuable, probably a little bit underrated for people who don't have the tools or just don't really know how to use the tools. This is all that I use. Just these tools have been very good to me in MLB DFS. I don't think you really need a game by game breakdown. I think you should just check out these. While I've got these tools on the screen for you, I think you could find them very helpful in creating your lineups. I know I have in the past. So just going to show you what's going on with the tools. I'm going to hold off on creating my lineups in Fantasy Cruncher. I know that drove some people away when I got into the Fantasy Cruncher a little bit. I will have to do it later on in the show because I got to make my lineups, but I'm going to do it very quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time making my lineups today. I'm just going to go through the tools. Maybe we'll build a couple lineups here, and we'll talk about different kind of stacks you can do on this slate. Anyway, that is my general pitcher breakdown. We've got a lot of very strong pitchers. Interesting spot for Grayson Rodriguez when he's 4,000, even in Texas. And then some mid-range options. Of course, we don't have any like 11,000 pitchers on this slate, which is sort of interesting too. When you've got guys like Cole and DeGrom on the mound, Corbin Burns, a lot of aces, and none of them all that expensive, makes it a little bit easier to get to those aces as well. Let's take a look at top stacks, and then we'll start talking about building some lineups with these stacks. So Tampa, as I mentioned earlier, just easily the best spot on the board. They are facing Patrick Corbin, one of the, if not the weakest pitcher on the board on this slate at this point in his career. It's a great weather spot. And the ownership is going to be there. That makes sense. The ownership is going to be there on Tampa. It's a tough spot because there are so many aces on the mound today making their second start. It's a little bit hard to want to target a lot of those different stacks against those aces. So Tampa does kind of stick out like a sore thumb. You can see that right here in the top stacks tool. 16% chance to be in the top stack on the board. The next best is all the way down at 9%. The only thing that you have to worry about with Tampa is the ownership is going to be there. So if you play that Tampa stack and it goes perfectly, you're still going to be competing with 21% of the field. So you've cut down the size of the field significantly, but and of course there are, it's a stack. So you can play different parts of the stack is another way to get different, but you are probably, no matter what stack you do for Tampa, you're probably going to be competing with a significant amount of the field still. So that's the one drawback to these Tampa stacks is the field's going to be there as well. But still a fine stack to target if you just get different in other spots. Typically for me, I'm going to be focusing on some of these stacks that have, mid-range odds of being the top stack on the board, but low ownership. Of course, St. Louis stands out as well as a stack that I really like for leverage purposes. 6% projected ownership, 9% chance of being the top stack. They look really strong here. But I'm a little bit less inclined on most slates to go all the way down to the bottom, even when usually if you look at the teams that have the worst top stack odds, they are going to have positive leverage, but often it's like they're projected for 0.5% ownership with a 1.2% chance of being the top stack on the board, which is fine. I mean, that's if you want to take those chances, that's totally fine. And over the long haul, you can probably make some really strong plus EV lineups targeting those kinds of stacks. But you're only going to hit like once every 3 months if they have a 1% chance of being the top stack on the board. Whereas I'd rather take a shot on, some of these stacks that have a 5%, 6%, 4% chance of being the top stack on the board. You can still find some nice leverage spots more in the middle in these stacks. So on this particular slate, yeah, I think Tampa, it goes without saying, is a strong stack if you are willing to get different elsewhere. What is Terry saying? If Grayson is 1% at 4,000 draft, I'll buy you steak dinner next time in Minnesota. Do I have to give you anything if he's not, Terry? No, I agree with you. I'm 100% with you. I think Grayson is going to be more than 1% owned. Love having Terry in the chat too, because I know that he is, if I start talking about somebody, sometimes Terry will chime in with his great baseball facts, one of the greatest MLB DFS minds out there. So I always appreciate having Terry in the chat. Oh, hell yeah. I see Gundacker in the stack. Maybe we'll find some Slumdacker. I think I get the Slumdacker specials where we can target the pitcher, and then also in other lineups, the stack on the other side of it. Probably find some of those today. I think this is going to be one of those days. I mean, just looking, we got Aaron Nola against the Yankees. I'd say that is a Slumdacker special. Am I saying that right, Gundacker? Remind me what the actual Scumdacker. Yeah, we're going to have some Scumdacker specials here. So that'll be we'll check those out as we go. But favorite stacks on the board, yeah, obviously Tampa, really strong stack. You're going to have to get different elsewhere if you do stack up the Rays. We can look at the top batters tool and just see who we like in the Tampa stack. So looking at all positions, and then we'll just look at odds of being the top fantasy scorer. Yeah, you get a lot of Tampa at the top here. Randy Arozarena, Wander Franco, Isaac Paredes. Who else we got up here? Oh yeah, Isaac Paredes at another position. Jose Siri. Just so many of these Tampa guys are near the top of their position. Yandy Diaz, of course, I don't have this sorted by position, but just overall batters, these Tampa bats are all showing up near the top of the board. Really strong stack throughout. I hope this doesn't trigger people when I am going to open Fantasy Cruncher just as something to look at, so we can look at the full lineup for Tampa, look at the projections there. All right. Just scrolling down. Yeah, we've got this starting lineup here, and it's just throughout some really, really strong projections on Tampa. They are one of the best projected teams on the board. Mejia down here is, at catcher, projection of 7 looks about fine. Of course, we're talking baseball here. Projection is not the be all end all by any means. It's much less relevant than it is for NBA, but still relevant. You still want to be building lineups that project well, that have a good chance of succeeding here. So, yeah, we've got a strong lineup throughout here, really, with Tampa. I don't think there's anybody that I would necessarily fade, but they are all getting ownership here as well. The lowest we have, Manuel Margot, 10.9%, lowest in the entire lineup in terms of projected ownership. But the projections are there. Makes a lot of sense. Tampa is going to be a strong team on the slate, just going to be highly owned. St. Louis is looking pretty interesting to me here. 6.1% projected ownership, 9% chance of being the top stack. I have concerns. So sometimes with the top stacks tool, because so many of the best players in the game are looking at these tools, I get concerned a little bit just with the teams that stand out a little bit too much. I imagine the ownership is going to come up a little bit here on St. Louis above that 6% number. Again, just because people are looking at this, and there are probably other similar tools out there. People are looking at this, seeing this data, and thinking, I want to play St. Louis. There's no real way to account for that in the top stack score, right? The fact that we might affect ownership, but it is something to keep in mind. When you see teams that look a little bit too good, they're probably going to get higher ownership than we're projecting them for. So St. Louis, still a really strong stack, but I would imagine they're going to be higher than 6% owned. We'll have to, maybe I'll try to test that, look at it as we go through the season. But I think sometimes just these teams that stand out a little bit too much, you just got to factor in, maybe we get a couple percentage point bumps in the ownership, and really there's nothing you can do. You can't bump up the ownership to offset. I don't know. It's a tough equation there, but St. Louis looks really strong here against Bryce Elder, 9% chance of being the top stack. Looking at the St. Louis bats, we've got Brendan Donovan leading off. And yeah, I mean, the projected ownership, none of these guys getting 10% ownership. So significant decrease in projected ownership for the bats in St. Louis, and a lot of really strong plays throughout, decent projections throughout as well. Jordan Walker not projecting all that strong, not going to get a ton of ownership. He's, in the 7-hole, hard to project too well from the 7-hole. Andrew Knizer doesn't look all that great. Projection under 5, probably not getting to a lot there. We'll take a look at the top bats tool as well with the St. Louis guys. Nobody showing up. I guess Paul Goldschmidt, Brendan Donovan showing up fairly near the top, 6.5% chance of being the top at their position there. I think they're obviously strong plays. Nobody else grading out, like they're not grading out nearly as well as Tampa, which shouldn't be a surprise. Tampa grading out quite well here, but Nolan Arenado looking pretty good. 5% chance of being the top stack, and being the top at his position. 6% projected ownership. That's low enough ownership that I don't really care that much about the leverage there. Alec Burleson against Bryce Elder, 5%. We got Tommy Edman. A lot of different ways you can build this St. Louis stack. I think just looking at the data, the only guys that I probably would not want to have in my St. Louis stacks, Andrew Knizer, it looks a little bit thin with that low of a projection. Probably not getting there a ton. Jordan Walker, the price is fine. Maybe he's okay. But in general, I'd say this is a fairly strong lineup throughout. Obviously, Goldschmidt, Arenado look great. Nolan Gorman, only 3,300 in that 5-hole. Looks pretty strong here. I think there are a lot of nice ways you can build out this St. Louis stack. And then from there, Atlanta looks okay. Not a great spot against Miles Michaelis. Am I saying that right? I always go back and forth on how I pronounce that name. Michaelis. I don't know. But it's a fine enough spot for Atlanta just because they are such a strong stack in general. I'm willing to target bats when it's the Atlanta stack, even in a tough matchup with Michaelis. I'm willing to go to some Atlanta. Okay, Terry saying, don't sleep on Walker, one of the top hitting prospects in baseball. Yeah, that's one of those hard things to project out is prospects. So, okay, I'm going to take Terry's advice there. Do not fade Jordan Walker, even if he doesn't project extremely well. He projected, I think, fine point per dollar because he was relatively cheap. But I will gladly take Terry's advice there. All right, Atlanta going to look pretty strong here. Yeah, we've got Acuna, Albies right at the top of the board. Good odds of being the top of their position. Actually, really low ownership on Albies here. Just 5% projected ownership, 7.7% chance of being the top second baseman on the board. Looks really strong. Travis d'Arnaud, looking a little bit over-owned, but it's hard to find great catchers, so probably willing to play some d'Arnaud. I'm guessing he's going to make it into a lot of Atlanta stacks just because, he's going to be one of the stronger catchers that you can find on the board. Fits in naturally into that stack, and he's only 4,000, so probably going to get to some d'Arnaud here, even though he has a little bit of negative leverage. Michael Harris looks strong, 4,000, 6% chance of being, again, little bit high ownership here, but I don't mind that all that much. Matt Olson, of course, was chalk on Saturday, and of course hit 2 home runs as chalk, but probably not going to do that every day, but still a fine option. 5% chance of being top first baseman on the board. Plenty of strong options throughout this Atlanta lineup. Austin Riley all the way down here, 4% chance, 10% projected ownership. Still a fine play. I think Atlanta is a strong enough stack. Really, none of these stacks extremely highly owned other than Tampa, and obviously Tampa with good reason. This Boston stack looks just a little bit over-owned here against Mitch Keller. It is a nice spot, though, and 10% ownership, I'm still willing to get there. Obviously, they're less than half the projected ownership of Tampa, and they're the Red Sox. They can put up a big score. It's in Fenway. It's not great hitting weather in Fenway. It's the one knock against them, but they're the Red Sox. It doesn't concern me all that much. I'm still willing to go to some Red Sox stacks here. Again, looking at the top batters tool. We'll keep coming back to it so I can show you some specific batters because I know some of you are wanting to build out your lineups as we talk about them. Yeah, the rookie looking good here. I forget what his last name is, and I can't open this up. But the rookie for Boston looking strong in the outfield. 6.4% chance of being top outfielder, one of the top 3 outfielders on the board. 9.8% ownership is just fine. Hopefully he can get his home run ball back at some point. I saw that the family who caught the ball not willing to give him his first home run ball back. I hope that at some point he is able to acquire that ball somehow. Rafael Devers, 6% projected ownership, 12% chance of being the top at his position. That's fine. A little bit of negative leverage, but still willing to go there in some lineups. 5.5% chance of being the top catcher for Connor. 6.7% chance. Projected ownership looks okay. We're getting into some names that I don't know as well with Boston this year. Alex Verdugo, 5% chance of being one of the top 3 outfielders. 13% ownership, a little bit high. Still a lot of nice ways to build out these Boston lineups. Love that they're in Fenway. Hate that it's not great hitting weather in Fenway, but what are you going to do? They're the Red Sox. They can put up runs in bad weather. Not a huge concern. Houston against Eduardo Rodriguez looks okay. I think I'm willing to go to some Houston stacks. Probably not going to be one of the top stacks that I pick, but I think I'm willing to go to some Houston against Eduardo Rodriguez. 8% projected ownership, 7% chance of being the top stack on the board. They look fine. The Houston bats strong enough that they can really do it against anybody. Pittsburgh against Corey Kluber, again in Fenway. Look okay. 8% ownership, 7% chance of being the top stack. Probably not one that I'm targeting. Milwaukee, I find pretty interesting, even though David Peterson is a tough pitcher. We've got tough pitchers against the board across the board here. 5.9% projected ownership, 5.9% chance of being the top stack, and then 9.4% chance of being the top value stack. So that's kind of leverage I like to see on Milwaukee. I think that they're one of the teams that I'm going to be targeting here. And just looking at the top bats for Milwaukee, yeah, we've got William Contreras right there at the top. 9% chance of being the top catcher on the board. He's going to be owned. We're projecting him for 17% ownership. I think he gets there. He's 3,900. One of the better options on the slate. Hard to find catchers once again. So willing to go there to Contreras for Milwaukee. Moving down the board. Yeah, Willy Adames looks pretty good. 6% chance of being the top shortstop on the board. 6% ownership. Doesn't scare me away. So it's a pretty strong option, I think, to go to Milwaukee. Not as many towards the top as I would have. Christian Yelich all the way down here at a 4.4% chance of being one of the top 3 outfielders. I'm still willing to go there. He's 5,000. He's Christian Yelich. I'll take some shots there. Owen Miller down at 2,100, 4.2% chance of being one of the top 3 outfielders, 3.7% projected ownership. So looks pretty nice there. And yeah, 2,100. Do we have a top value column? I have to imagine he's looking good there. Yeah, top value odds. Yeah, so here's where we get Contreras near the top there. Owen Miller, yeah, so he's fairly near to the top in terms of top odds of being one of the top value plays. Mike Brousseau at third base looks like a good value play here. Pretty low ownership. So I think Milwaukee, a fairly strong stack. Luke Voit in there, 2,900 at first base. I'll take some shots there. Remind me, Terry, you hate Luke Voit, right? I forget if he was the one that you hate or absolutely love. I think that you don't like. You're not a big fan of Luke Voit's game. But still, at 2,900, hard not to have some interest in Luke Voit here. Yelich is still 2 in his head coming back off the back injury. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously some concerns there, but it's still, I think, willing to take shots. If you're stacking out Milwaukee, maybe not a strong one-off play, but if you are stacking up Milwaukee, I still think that I'm willing to look at some Yelich. Oh yeah, Earl Pep Tyson. I will look at FanDuel as well. That's a good idea. Forget we got to cover it all because we only got 40 minutes here. I'll just name a couple more stacks that stand out to me in the tools, and then I'll look at the top FanDuel pitchers as well. Yeah, so Texas against Grayson Rodriguez. Interesting, again, because it is a pitcher making his MLB debut. We don't know how deep he's going to go into the game. Might be a bullpen game here. Hard not to have some interest in Texas against Grayson Rodriguez. Also, as I recall, did not do all that great in spring training. So yeah, I'm willing to take some shots on Texas here, even though obviously I'm not doing it in lineups where I have Grayson Rodriguez. I'm going to play some Grayson Rodriguez in some other lineups. This is going to be a scumdacker special for me. I'll stack up Texas in my non-Grayson Rodriguez lineups. I think that they look like a pretty strong option going up against the rookie. Don't think I'm going to play the Mets against Corbin Burns. I don't know. There is some positive leverage. 3.6% ownership, 5.4% chance of being the top stack. In a 150 set, I think I would be above the field on the Mets. I'm only playing, I think, 25 lineups today. I don't think they're one of the teams I'm going to choose just because it is a tough matchup. But tools are telling me I probably should. So maybe I'll think about that. I'll see if I find, I think I'm going to go with like 5 stacks today that I focus on. Try to narrow down the player pool a little bit. I don't know that I'm going to get to the Mets, but we'll see what else I find out there. Minnesota, it's a tough spot. In Miami against Jesus Luzardo, kind of a tough spot to really want to get to. A little bit of negative leverage here. Not a huge concern. If you want to go there, I think it's totally fine, but it is with they're in Miami, Pitcher's Park, solid pitcher. So I don't think I'm likely to go there. White Sox look pretty good here. 2.9% ownership, 4% chance of being the top stack on the board, 2.8% chance of being the top value stack. I think I'm willing to go to some White Sox. San Francisco against Dylan Cease, kind of a middling team for me, 4.4% ownership. I don't think they're going to be one of the teams that I am picking today, but I think if you want to go there, they look fine. 4.4% ownership, 7.1% chance of being the top value stack. Looks okay. Baltimore, I don't think I want to target Jacob deGrom, even though he didn't have a great game the last time out. It is also, he is also probably limited, so maybe they get to the bullpen. I guess you could make a case for going to Baltimore against Jacob deGrom. Going to be low owned, obviously, 1.4%. I would imagine they are going to be low owned because they're facing deGrom. Maybe I'm changing my mind. Maybe I do have some interest in Baltimore just because, again, deGrom didn't look great the last time out, and he's also limited here. So maybe he didn't look great in that he gave up some hits. I think he also had a solid number of strikeouts. So the strikeout's still there for deGrom in his last time out, and probably will pitch a little bit more than he did the last game. A little bit more stretched out. So not the strongest option, but at 1.4% ownership, a little bit interesting there. Yankees, I think this is another scumdacker special. I'll have some Nola. Willing to play some Yankees bats as well against Nola. 1.4% ownership, 3.3% chance of being top stack on the board. Nola is one of those pitchers. Somebody was saying that Garrett Cole is inconsistent. Nola is the one that stands out to me as he's always been a guy who is an ace, and then he'll just give up like 10 runs in 2 innings. So he's somebody that I often am willing to target when the opposing team is low owned, and especially when that opposing team is the Yankees or a similarly great lineup. I'm willing to face Aaron Nola in some lineups. So don't mind that. I don't think I'm going to Miami against Pablo Lopez. It's in Miami. Solid pitcher in Lopez. Don't think I'm going there. Philly against Garrett Cole. Yeah, if you think that Garrett Cole is inconsistent enough that you want to target him, it's obviously a great leverage spot. Cole projected for 41.5% ownership. You're getting leverage on all of those players if you do target Cole with Philly's bats. I don't know that I'm going to here just because I do think Cole is a strong enough pitcher that I think there are other stacks that I'd rather target, but you can definitely make a case for it with the that strong leverage. And we actually have just some 2.2% chance of being the top stack on the board at 1.5% ownership already. Some leverage in that sense, and then leverage in the sense that a lot of the field is going to have Garrett Cole. There's a strong case to be made there. Man, the Nats 11.6% chance of being the top value stack on the board. They must be fairly cheap because it's not a great matchup against Shane McClanahan. It is obviously nice weather for them, but 1.8% ownership. Yeah, some interest there. 2.2% chance of being the top stack on the board. 11.6% chance of being the top value stack. I think I do have some interest in Miami. If I were playing 10 lineups, I'd probably include them as one of those, or 10 different teams. I'd probably include them. And then Detroit against Christian Javier. Again, we've got a nice leverage spot. 32.8% projected ownership for Javier. And then Detroit projected for just 1.3% ownership, 8.8% chance of being the top value stack, 2% chance of being the top stack overall. So yeah, today is not a day where I'm shying away too much from the low end of the board. It is, we have so many really strong pitchers on the slate that you kind of have to play some stacks against good pitchers and hope for the best. And I think today in particular, these are some nice spots for some of these pitchers some of these stacks towards the bottom of the board. So I do have some interest in Detroit as well. I had been asked about looking at the top pitchers tool for FanDuel. Let's check that out. All right, Garrett Cole, once again, top pitcher on the board. Yeah, these numbers, you can only play one pitcher on FanDuel. So obviously the odds of being the top pitcher as opposed to the top 2 pitcher go down quite a bit. But yeah, Garrett Cole still very, very strong option on FanDuel, projected to be for 32% ownership. 12% chance of being the top pitcher on the board. So probably he is your cash game pitcher. In GPPs, I'm probably going to be more inclined to get away and spread out my ownership once again elsewhere, similar to DraftKings. I think I'm going to be underweight to the field on the chalkiest pitchers. I know that's not usually the approach that we recommend, but on this slate in particular, just given the high volatility of so many different spots on the board, I think I'm going to go underweight to the field on on Garrett Cole, even though he is clearly a pretty strong option here. 12% chance of being the top pitcher on the board. There's a little gap here between Garrett Cole and Jacob deGrom, who is second. DeGrom, little price savings here on Garrett Cole. Might be probably more stretched out than he was in his first start. Maybe it can get up to, 80, 85 pitches. I don't know what we'd expect from DeGrom here, but he's a good enough strikeout pitcher and a good enough pitcher in general that I think he could get through quality start in 85 pitches. So I think even on FanDuel, DeGrom is an option. I think that he's stretched out enough to potentially get a quality start, a win, and rack up some strikeouts, even in, if he's limited to like 85 or so innings. I think I'm willing to take some shots on DeGrom. Again, 8% chance of being the top pitcher on the board at 16% ownership. A little bit of negative leverage, but he's half the ownership of Garrett Cole, so still interested in me. Christian Javier up at 10,000 on FanDuel, so much more expensive than he is on DraftKings. Going to get about half the ownership that he's getting on DraftKings. Also not as good of odds as being the top pitcher on the board or the top value pitcher on the board. Looks like a fine option. Really fairly expensive pitchers on FanDuel today. That's not you don't usually see this many pitchers close to the 5-figure mark here. So I don't know. Are there cheap? Do we want to go to some of these cheaper pitchers? But even like Pablo Lopez up at 9,400. I wonder if this is going to be a thing throughout the year. I think it's probably just this slate they pitched up. They priced up some pitchers, but kind of makes it more interesting. Where do we have Grayson? Why am I not seeing him? Is this a smaller slate on FanDuel? Is that what's going on here? This must be a smaller slate, right? Egg Boy and Dog Boy. Yes, you can get a shout out. Shout out Egg Boy and Dog Boy. I like that. I like dogs and I like eggs. So I'm with you. Okay, they added him late. FanDuel just added him. He's 7,500. Interesting. Okay, so he is on the slate, just not in the tools. Again, I think he's probably going to pick up some ownership, but man, at 7,500 on this slate where all the pitchers are priced up. Thank you guys for the info, by the way. On this slate where all the pitchers are priced up, that is going to be an interesting spot to me. I think that's a big decision point. You want to spend up to one of the 10 pitchers that are up here in price, or do you want to 7,500? That is a nice savings discount. I guess it's probably not as much as it is on DraftKings where it's the min 4,000, but yeah, 7,500 is definitely an interesting price point for Grayson Rodriguez. I'm probably willing to take some shots there. It's unfortunate that he was added late. We can't see what our projected ownership is here. Actually, I could. Let's see. I'll pull up the FanDuel as well to see if we can find his ownership. And again, our projected ownership on DraftKings, I think, is a little bit low. On FanDuel, it's probably going to be, we'll see what he's projected for. Got to pick the slate here. Okay, so yeah, we don't have a projected ownership for him at this point. My guess, if I had to guesstimate it here, I'll give you an over under. See what you guys think. I think Grayson Rodriguez gets to 10.5% ownership today. What do you guys think? Take the over or the under there. That's where I'm putting him. Okay, we'll get back to see if there's anything else interesting within the top pitchers. Yeah, even Pablo Lopez up at 9,400. Really, it's fairly spread out in terms of just looking at the top pitcher odds. I'm probably not taking Patrick Corbin against Tampa Bay. Can make a case for it. He's going to be, he's not going to get any ownership here. We've got him at under 1% projected ownership. He is the cheapest pitcher on the entire board. So there is a case to be made. Maybe Patrick Corbin allows you to get to some stacks you couldn't otherwise get to. And he's a great leverage against all of those Tampa stacks. Yeah, maybe Patrick Corbin is if you can make a lineup that looks great, if you can make a stack that leaves just a stack combo that leaves just 6,500 left over for the pitcher, there's a case to be made for Patrick Corbin. It's a little bit thin, I think, just because we have so many pitchers who have the ability to put up huge scores, like scores that you really need to have from one of these top end guys. But there's a case to be made. If you really like a stack that has 6,500 left over a pitcher, I might consider playing some Patrick Corbin in those specific lineups, even if I don't. It's obviously he's not a great pitcher, probably not going to put up a huge score, but you are kind of asking for a lot, like for a lot of aces to not do that well if you play Patrick Corbin. But then again, if the stacks go completely off and he's the only pitcher that allows you to get there, there's definitely a strong case to be made. I wouldn't play Patrick Corbin in a lineup that doesn't require him. So if you have a lineup that has money left on the table, I'm probably not playing Patrick Corbin in those lineups. But if you can make a lineup where you have just like under 7,000 or less available, maybe I'd consider playing Patrick Corbin in some lineups if the stack looks really strong, because not a lot of people will probably make those lineups. But yeah, so here's top pitchers tool for FanDuel. Again, fairly spread out. Let me know if you have any specific questions. But the analysis that I gave for DraftKings largely applies to FanDuel as well. I'm going to be spreading out my pitcher exposure. I think there's a lot of strong spots, and there's a lot of scumdacker specials where you're going to play the pitcher in some lineups, and then in other lineups you're going to be playing the stack that goes against that pitcher. I think this is one of those days where there's just pretty high volatility. What else we want? So we looked at the top stacks tool. I guess we can show top stacks for FanDuel as well quickly. Okay. All right. Oh yeah, I gotta look at FanDuel. No, I already did select that. My bad. All right. So on FanDuel, again, Tampa, the highest odds of being the top stack. That's not a surprise. They're generally going to be similar on both sites, but 20% projected ownership on FanDuel, 15% chance of being the top stack. Still a fine stack to play. You just need to find different ways to get a little bit different. St. Louis, again, looking pretty strong, 5% projected ownership, 10% chance of being the top stack. Again, my biggest concern being people are looking at these tools and might see them and think, yeah, St. Louis, that's an obvious spot, because they do look like a great leverage spot here. So that's my only real concern is the field has gotten stronger and started looking at these tools, and maybe some of the places where they look a little bit too good, the ownership comes up a little bit. Atlanta, 5.6% projected ownership, 8% chance of being the top stack. Looks pretty strong on FanDuel as well. Boston, a little bit overowned. Again, I still think I'm willing to go to some Boston stacks against Pittsburgh. Houston against Eduardo Rodriguez. I'm generally willing to play Houston. It seems like finally the field is willing to play Houston again. There was a couple of years there following some cheating scandals that the field was just not willing to play Houston all that much, and they were one of the best stacks day in and day out. Looks like that's no longer the case. They're finally starting to pick up some ownership. Texas, again, going up against a rookie pitcher. I'd like the volatility there. We don't know what to expect. Could be a complete bullpen game, and he did struggle a little bit in spring training. So 4% projected ownership on the Texas stack, 6.4% chance of being the top stack. I do like the volatility of a Texas stack. So that's one that I would be willing to go to on FanDuel as well. I don't think I'm actually playing on FanDuel today, but I would play some Texas if I were going to in my lineups where I'm not playing Grayson Rodriguez. Pittsburgh, yeah, 12% ownership, 6% chance of being the top stack. Not the strongest option there. Milwaukee, not the strongest option on FanDuel. I like them better on DraftKings than FanDuel. Looks like they're getting higher ownership on FanDuel, so not quite as interested there. The White Sox looking good here. Mets looking good, even against Corbin Burns. Yeah, Mets strong enough lineup that I might be willing to go to the Mets on FanDuel. Again, on FanDuel, so the difference, if there's anybody new here, FanDuel, you can only build stacks of 4-man stacks. You can build a couple 4-4 stacks, some 4-3 stacks. Jim Thomas, hey, Neil, you can make the case means don't play. No, I wouldn't say that. So I would say they're not going to be a team that I make in the first. I'm probably not playing them today. If you were playing 150, I would probably be above the field is I think what I mean by that. Like there is, I think, actually a relatively strong case to play them, but they're going to fail way more often than they're going to succeed. So you just got to keep in mind, what does your bankroll look like? How long do you think you can sustain playing teams that are unlikely to do well. So I think that's what I mean when I'm talking about those low end stacks. It's unlikely to hit. Like Tampa, way more likely to put up a big score today. But in the long run, you can build plus EV lineups that are likely to hit once every 2 months, and the field is playing them like they're likely to hit once every 4 months. So like it's a plus EV stack in the long run, but if you don't have a big enough bankroll to sustain it, I wouldn't play that stack. I would play a more middling stack that has maybe a 5% chance of getting there. Buxton home run pick, Marcus. I don't know about taking Buxton as a home run pick in Miami. I love Buxton, so I'm willing to, but yeah, I don't know that he would be my number one home run pick on the day. I'll think about that. Let's look at the top batters pool and see if there's anybody who looks great. Who would be my top home run pick here? I mean, obviously, Aaron Judge, always an interesting home run pick. Obviously, a little bit obvious, so maybe I wouldn't go to Aaron Judge. Goldschmidt, is that too obvious? I think I might take Goldschmidt. Looks like a solid spot. Jordan Alvarez. Yeah, give me Jordan Alvarez. That's my dong pick for today. I'll go with Jordan Alvarez. I wonder what has Terry answered that question? I love hearing Terry's power picks on the day because I know he has a little bit of a different method of seeing these things. Seager was my overall pick. Oh, Buxton is the top home run guy in Terry's model, even in Miami. So yeah, I mean, fire up Byron Buxton. Love it. Love to hear that. Kyle Gentry does not like my Alvarez top home run pick. Hey, I don't know. I don't do home run picks typically, but he's a strong enough. I'm trying not to do the most obvious, like Aaron Judge, a little bit too obvious. Obviously, a strong home run pick, but yeah, Alvarez, he's a strong enough pick. I can get there. Rafael Devers, I like that call. Strong home run pick. All right. Should we build out some lineups? Let me build out some lineups in Fantasy Cruncher, and then I'm just going to take a look at the lineups. So this isn't a Fantasy Cruncher tutorial. I'm just going to build out some lineups and then look at what they look like, see which ones stand out to me as solid lineups. I'm not going to go through the process I did on Saturday where I curated the stacks. I'm just going to build out a bunch of stacks with a bunch of different teams, and then we will take a look at them, see what looks good here. Anybody else I need to add to the player pool here? Okay, looking good. Pitchers. Looking good. Okay. Go into here. I am just going to set global exposure cap at 30% here to try to get some different bats. Throw in a little bit of randomness. I'm going to build out a few different types of stacks here so we can look at what different stacks look like, what different combos look at. So I'm going to start with some 5-3 stacks, but I am going to do a few different types. Then we can look at what the different lineups look like. We have 9 games on this slate, so 18 teams. I'm trying to build out, maybe I'll still go a little bit. Okay, we'll go 7% across the board, and then we'll do a secondary stack. I'm not going to do team combo limits just yet. I haven't really played. I need to play with that tool because I do think it looks like it's going to be a useful tool. So like maybe you don't play Tampa with other chalky stacks, for example. You can limit that, but I haven't played around with it enough. I don't want to start here. Okay, so now I'm just going to build out some 5-3 lineups. We'll do and you can see here 181% projected ownership on this first stack, which is Tampa and St. Louis. Cuts all the way down to the second stack from 181 to 141, the second stack built. And this is not like the highest projected stack on the board, but pretty interesting to me to see how far it goes down. And of course, that's because it's the second lineup and I have a salary cap. None of the players, or a cap on ownership, none of the players from this first lineup can be in the second lineup, but still projects fairly well. 101 points 9-point projection drop. But again, in baseball, don't care about that as much. Anyway, I'm going to build up more lineups, and then we're going to take a look at which lineups look the best here. Go back to team stacks, and now I'll add in some 5-2 stacks. And I'm just going to add 100 more. And we're good. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to make some five-man primary stacks without any secondary stack. So I'm going to delete this secondary stack. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to make some 4-4s before I delete the stack. So that'll save me some time if I do 4-4. And these are generally the types of stacks that I build. So I'm going to add in 100 4-4 stacks. And then I'll do 4-3 and 5-0. And that'll be 500 different lineups that I've built. And then we can look at some of the top projected, which again, looking at the top projected, those aren't necessarily the best lineups, but usually you can find some solid lineups up there. All right, now I'm going to add in a 4-3 stack. I saved that every time, and I don't even know if I need to. I should test that sometime. Probably save myself minutes in a day. Probably not minutes. Probably just seconds. Taking some time here. And we are good. And then we'll do just one more 5-0 stacks. And then we'll take a look at what the lineups actually look like. So I'm going to delete this one. All right, and then I will have 500 stacks built out here. We'll look at some of the top projected. Again, I think that there are pros and cons to different types of stacks. 5-3, obviously you get the highest correlation, but not necessarily going to be the top projected, maybe a little bit more pigeonholed into similar builds to other people. Oh yeah, Brandon Marsh scratched. I already have that accounted for. I think that I refreshed after that news came out, but let me just double check. So we already have that news accounted for in here. Okay, so now looking at some of these lines. So I'm going to sort by projection, which again, I don't know the best way to do this just yet if somebody has ideas, but I just want to look at what the different types of lineups look like. I think by projection, probably the best way we can do it. But I want to take a look at what does the ownership look like in some of these lineups. We've got Tommy Edman down at 3.3%, so kind of brings down the ownership a little bit there. But the top projected on the board, I think this is the very first lineup that came out. So this is the top projected lineup in a 5-3 stack. And I think that is probably just the overall top projected lineup in a 5-3 stack that you can build, but probably not one that I would want to play here. So I'm going to uncheck. I'm going to just select some of the lineups that I like as I go. Now this is a 4-3 stack with St. Louis as the primary stack, Tampa as a secondary stack. So you can see here, we've got the Tampa guys. I like the sequential ordering of Paredes, Arozarena, and Harold Ramirez. 3, 4, 5 bats look good. And we've got the 1, 2, 3, and the 8. So that's why Tommy Edman in the 8 hole, 3.3% projected ownership. A little bit interesting there. And then, of course, we have William Contreras bringing in, and that's where you get higher projections generally if you don't stack quite as much. I mean, that you would expect that to be the case because you're allowing Fantasy Cruncher the option of just throwing in a higher projected player rather than forcing in a combo, forcing in a stack that maybe doesn't project as well, but that looks good in a combo stack. So you would expect generally the higher projected lineups are going to be the ones that you're not stacking all the way. So you're not a 4-4 stack, a 5-3 stack. Generally, those are going to project better, but there's not quite as good of correlation. Jake Swale says, put Jose Siri in your raise stacks or you will regret it. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. I'm sure I'll have some Jose Siri. Yeah, we've got him in 18% of our lineups here. All right, so here we've got with Tampa, I'd be a little bit disinclined, I think, to play a Tampa with St. Louis stack, even though this one, the ownership, well, the ownership is up at 181 here. I think I'm disinclined to play this lineup just because that stack combo, while it is a very solid combo, I think it's going to be highly owned as well. So I'm probably not playing that one. Oh, we got Dylan Cease actually in the top projected lineup. Interesting. All right, down here, we're losing some ownership here, down to 169%. Most of that, I think, being the pitcher. Now we've still got DeGrom is up at 29%. Where are we losing the ownership here? So we've got Nolan Arenado in there, just 5.7%. I do like, so I do like these St. Louis stacks. But then the combo with Tampa, adding in these really high-owned bats, I don't think that I want to do this combo. So I think I'm going to skip past this one. This one is more interesting. We've got Milwaukee coming in at low ownership. Contreras, of course, getting more ownership because he's a catcher. But then Luke Voit down at 4.3%. Mike Rousseau, 6.5%. Joey Weimer at just 1% projected ownership in the 9-hole. We got they're not the best. This is not the best in terms of stacks. So we got the 4 and the 5 together. Love that. But then the 1 and the 9, there is as I've said, there's positive correlation throughout. I'm willing to play these types of lineups, but obviously it's better correlation the closer the batters are in the order to each other. I think that even with that, the gaps there, I'm probably willing to play this lineup. So maybe I'll select that one. I think that's a pretty strong lineup. I do like Alvarez, of course, my home run pick, guaranteed. Gordon Alvarez hits a home run today. No, kidding, not guaranteed. But overall, I think this looks like a strong enough lineup. We do again have the 2-3-4 from Tampa. We've got a little bit more spread out with Milwaukee, but I think that's a fine lineup at, the ownership is there overall, the sum ownership. But then we do have some low enough owned bats that I don't think it's going to be super highly owned. I don't think it's going to be duped unless one of you dupes me. St. Louis and Tampa, again, maybe I should have gone back and then put in that rule that you can't have those stacks together. I just don't think I want to play them together today. And of course, they're going to put up 30 runs between them, but a lot of people are going to be playing them, so you don't really gain as much of an advantage if you play that stack, even though it does project and looks like it has pretty good odds of going off that double stack of St. Louis and Tampa. Pittsburgh, a little bit interesting. We've got Bay in the 8-hole, 1-2-8-6. Yeah, I think that's good enough in terms of sequential. The sequential nature, 6 and 8, just 2 apart, 8 and 1, just 2 apart. So not huge gaps there. And then we've got the 1, 3, 4, and 9. So really 9, 1, 3, 4 looks good. Magia down at 13% ownership looks okay. If I were going to play a Tampa stack, but the ownership projection overall, 209%. That's because we got the chalky pitchers, the chalkiest Tampa bats in there. I don't think I want to do that one. All right. I'm gonna choose another lineup here. Again, I'm gonna skip past that one. Braves and Tampa. So this is the issue with starting with all the highest projected lineups. Ordering it this way is most of them are going to be Tampa stacks. So, and I don't want to have like 100% Tampa stacks. Although they look great, they're going to be super highly owned. So that is my concern there. If I do play Tampa stacks, I want to do it with secondary stacks that are going to be pretty low owned, and we're still seeing pretty high ownership here. So I don't think I'm taking that one. I was asked yesterday if somebody was asking me about fantasy cruncher settings, should I set a rule like a cap on projected ownership? I told them that I wouldn't. It's not something I've ever done. Maybe something I need to reconsider at some point, because as I'm going through, I'm like, well, a lot of these I'm not choosing them because they are so highly owned. That is one way to cut it off, but you're really only cutting off some ownership there rather than product ownership. You can make some nice lineups that have high ownership throughout the lineup with several pieces that are lower owned. So I don't really want to do that, but that is one way to approach it. I could have set a cap there. All right, here's a Milwaukee stack that I can get behind. I think I already chose one there, but 1, 2, we're skipping the 3-hole, 4, 5, 6. Looks good for this Milwaukee stack. Marcus Semien as a one-off, and then we've got Jose Siri, who I was told I need to have in my Tampa stack. Just a 2-man Tampa stack here. The one downside of this particular lineup, we've got Arozarena at in the 4-hole, Jose Siri in the 8-hole. So a little bit less correlation there than if they were a little bit closer together. That's one other thing that I've thought about doing in my fantasy cruncher, and this I think applies to hand builders as well. thought about, cutting down on these types of lineups where I've got two batters that, yeah, they're correlated because they're in the same lineup, but there's also a big gap between them. So I've thought about in my secondary stacks only, making, some kind of a gap rule where I'm not having more than like two apart or something just in the secondary stack. Specifically, particularly I think when I have just a two-man secondary stack like this, I'd rather have them closer together, but I think I'm okay with it still. My hesitation with doing that, of course, being that sometimes that fewer lineups are going to fit. You're going to lose a lot of projection, I think, if you do that. So there are pros and cons. I think I will choose that one. All right, I'm not going to do just all Milwaukee stacks. So I want to keep moving on. Okay, here's a 5-3. I'm surprised we don't have more 5-3s up closer to the top in terms of projection here. But here's a 5-3 with Tampa and then 3 one-offs. Don't think I'm going to play it. Looks like a fine lineup. At Jesus Luzardo, you lose some ownership there. Dylan says, actually, this one, it's kind of interesting because so you've got the full Tampa stack, but then you are not playing the chalky pitchers here. So maybe I'm changing my mind. Maybe I will go to this one with all the one-offs, bunch of Tampa bats. I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4. There is a gap between those four and then Jose Siri. But again, I think I'm okay with that. So I think that's a fine enough looking stack lineup there with the low-owned pitchers. We get the 5, the very chalky Tampa stack here. Just looking at these ownership numbers on these Tampa guys, very high. And actually the one-offs kind of high owned too. Like no real unowned one-offs. But then with the pitchers being low enough, it's probably a fine combo there. All right, here's one. Now we've got, told you I want to avoid St. Louis and Tampa together. I do want to find a St. Louis stack that I like though. So I'm going to actually just focus on Paul Goldschmidt lineups for a second here. Are there any great lineups that have Paul Goldschmidt? I don't want him as a one-off. I think I'd rather have him in a full St. Louis stack. Do we have any near the top that don't also have Tampa in them? We do not. We just have Tampa in all of them. Okay. Yeah, Tampa. Here we go. We just got Yandy Diaz from Tampa. Bunch of one-offs. Contreras kind of chalky. Harris kind of chalky. I kind of like, okay, this one looks interesting to me. So we've got 2, 3, 5, 7 from St. Louis, 1, 2, 4 from Texas. Yeah, I'm interested in this one. I like this lineup. That's a pretty strong lineup. We do have the chalky pitchers and Garrett Cole and Christian Javier, but with St. Louis being fairly projected for a fairly low ownership here, Jordan Walker down at 1.5%, and then Texas not extremely chalky either. I mean, these guys have a little bit of ownership on them in that spot against a rookie pitcher. I think I like that lineup. See if I have any questions or thoughts about what I should be doing here. If there's anything else you guys want me to be looking at. Yeah, Pitt projects well for Terry. Concerned about Kluber's ability to completely suppress premium. Yeah, it's tough. I'll probably get to some Pittsburgh though. Okay, I like this with just O'Neill Cruz and Brian Reynolds. If you can just get those two into a lineup with my the St. Louis stack that I love, maybe I'll do that one. It's not the best like in terms of sequencing. In terms of this St. Louis lineup, we got what 2, 3, 5, 7, 9. But it's a 5-man. I'm less concerned about that when I have a full 5-man stack. So those 5, and then O'Neill Cruz, Brian Reynolds. Yeah, I kind of like that. And we get DeGrom and Cole. Let's throw that lineup in. I'm going to have to speed up my choosing lineups if I'm actually going to play them here. All right, I'm going to find one more Paul Goldschmidt lineup. I could also find, let's see if I could try to do a St. Louis stack that does not include Paul Goldschmidt. Red Sox with Paul Goldschmidt and Alec Burleson. That's interesting. Red Sox, we got 1, 2, 7, 8, 9. So great sequentiality. So we got, I think I just made up a word. Sequentiality, is that a word? 7, 8, 9, and then 1, 2 for the Red Sox. I kind of like that to go in the wraparound stack, everybody right in sequence. And then also sequencing with Paul Goldschmidt and Alec Burleson, O'Neill Cruz. I really like that lineup. So I'm going to select that one as well. All right, what other kind of stack do I want to build here? Maybe another Texas stack. I'm going to go with a Corey Seager stack. Already selected that one. Yeah. Disinclined to choose big Tampa stacks in general. All right, so here we've got Pittsburgh mixed in with Texas. Kind of interesting there. 2, 6, 8, 9 for Pittsburgh, and then also 1, 2, 3 for Texas. Yandy Diaz as a one-off. I'm getting a lot of DeGrom and Cole lineups. I said I was going to spread out my pitching exposure, and I feel like I'm choosing a lot of DeGrom Cole lineups. So maybe I'll look at that next. Find a lineup that is a different pitcher. Let me look at those real quick. But I'll choose one more of these. 2, 3, 4, 5 from Texas. 4, 6, 9 from Boston. Cole and Javier. All right, I'll choose that one, and then I'll move on and look at some different pitchers. Aaron Nola against the Yankees. Do I want to risk it? No. Oh man, I think I gotta bump up Grayson Rodriguez's projection and run another set, because I definitely want to get to some Grayson Rodriguez. I didn't get to any. Hard to project a pitcher just coming in, but I don't want to play no Grayson Rodriguez. I don't know if I'm going to have time. I don't want to run another crunch now, but yeah, that's a pitcher that I want to get to. So I'll play the one Grayson Rodriguez lineup that came out. High volatility spot. There's a good chance he fails there. Maybe I'll go with Pablo Lopez for my Twins. Full Texas stack. I think I've done enough Texas. Any other interesting stacks I could build around here? Should I be building a twin stack? I don't know if I need it in Miami. Brave stack. 1, 3, 4, 5, 9. Around with Paredes and Rosarena, Alec Burleson. That's interesting. I'm going to go with that. That's an interesting lineup. 136% some ownership there. And then what else? What other pitcher do I want to build with here? Maybe an Aaron Nola. Anybody have a pitcher you think I need to have? Aggressive was O'Neill. Hurry and submit. Yeah, you're right. I've got 3 minutes left to submit. I will. I'm not going to get through 25. I think some of these. The nice thing is I can also. I'm just gonna be missing out the games at lock with these ones. So, yeah, Larnach Dinger. I like that call. I can go for that. All right, got some new lineups in. I should refresh. Yeah, I'm going to have to try to get some of these lineups in. Give me 1 second here. I think I have reserve seats here. All right, I'm pulling up my DraftKings spreadsheet. I'm going to put these lineups into. Give me 1 second here. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Did it go and it reselected all the lineups when I refreshed? All right. Well, that's not ideal. All that work I did choosing specific lineups, I do not have them selected independently anymore. So I'm going to just export a bunch of lineups and then choose at random just to have something in there. Oops. That is a bummer. I did not realize it was going to deselect all my choices there. But I do want to have some lineups in there. Give me 1 second here. Just going to submit some lineups real quick and hope for the best. The nice thing is I know that all my lineups are going to be stacked in ways that I like. So although I didn't get to, curate the lineups exactly how I want to, I think I'm probably going to have some nice lineups, and there's some lineups that stack well. And it's not ideal. Typically, I would like to spend more time. I did get those lineups in, so good enough. Thank you for the reminder, guys. I got it in just in time. I got my 25 random lineups in. They're not like any curated lineups, not the ones that I wanted to have. I have no idea what lineups I played, but I made them. I made them in a stacking types that I like at least. So those are not going to be the worst. Sportsbook. This is going to be the last show Neil does now. No, it's I'll keep doing these shows. I'll probably have to get better at making my lineups while on the show. It's a little bit tough. Sorry to make you anxious, aggressive goose. I get you. It's it makes me anxious too. But I only played 25 lineups today, so that's part of an adjustment that I made. Last year I was 150 maxing while on shows, doing multiple sites. This year I cut out FanDuel for now, at least. I'll probably get back into FanDuel because I think in general it's a little bit softer. The competition is softer on FanDuel and cheaper to enter. I actually think although all my biggest hits have been on DraftKings, I think I'm more consistently hitting on FanDuel than DraftKings. So probably need to reintroduce FanDuel to my life. It's hard when you're doing content. It's been a struggle doing these live before locks and making lineups. But I enjoy doing the shows. It's become the bigger priority for me is doing the shows. So not cutting out the shows anytime soon. Especially a lot of these shows, of course. Typically, this show is supposed to be a strategy show. It's just early. So far, we've had live before lock. We've had the games are starting so early that it's kind of been forced to be a live before lock show. It's obviously easier to do my lineups when I am able to do them after the show on my own time. But gotta do what you gotta do. Prioritize what you need to prioritize. Anything else that you guys wanted to look at in the tools at all? I do have another show coming up soon. Going to be on an underdog show with Lofty in 24 minutes. So if you guys want to talk some underdog NBA, Lofty and I will be talking about it in a little bit over 20 minutes. Should be a good time. Oliver Klosoff already in first. Oh, that's a good name, Oliver Klosoff. I get it now. Yeah. We'll be doing an underdog show soon. What else do we have on the schedule? We've got a packed schedule today. I am myself on 3 different live shows today. The one coming up with Lofty, and then I'll be back for NBA live before lock tonight with Greg. It's gonna be that's the nice thing about the early MLB slate today. Yesterday, I had to build both my MLB and my NBA lineups during NBA live before lock. So I kind of prefer this, having it spread out a little bit. Wish I had not lost those lineups I was trying to make, but what are you gonna do? Hope you guys made some nice lineups looking at these. Hope you found it at least a little bit more helpful than the Saturday show. I know the hand builders in general were not a huge fan of the Saturday show, so trying to use less Fantasy Cruncher. The downside to that, again, being that I did not get great lineups in, but I'm okay with it. Probably good enough. Watch me win a GPP, and you're all going to see how much I luck boxed just selecting at random. I wish MLB was not day games till NBA ends, Mike. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, I enjoy daytime MLB. It's kind of fun. I don't have an issue with it. Did what games have already started? Do we know? Is anybody doing anything yet? I'm being told I'm the youngest version of EMAC. Thank you for saying I'm young, Cubs, in Discord. Saying I'm the youngest version of EMAC, not getting my lineups in. No, I got some lineups in. Whether they're the lineups I wanted them to be, maybe not so much. Yeah, I think it's my favorite. It's probably my favorite time of year when we have MLB during the day, NBA at night. I'm with you. Yeah, that's to me. Give it to me. Give me the daytime MLB. The only downside is I do kind of like the format of this show, particularly as a strategy show, where I can look at what the pros did the day before. It's a little bit more stressful to do live before lock. But other than the show itself, I love having daytime MLB all day. Just being able to play DFS throughout the day. Doesn't get any better. Oh, hell yeah. I'm in second place. I got 3 points in this the relay throw. 3 points out of Franco. Okay, Tampa already on the bases, of course. Yeah, Wander Franco. Crushing it. Patrick Corbin, though, also the leading pitcher right now, 0.9. So I hope you played your pitcher against the opposing bats. Ooh, Patrick Corbin just got a strikeout. Hell yeah. I don't know why I'm celebrating. I didn't play any Patrick Corbin, but got through the inning, got a strikeout, just gave up one hit. Okay. Wander 40% owned in your contest. He's 26% in the biggest $15 contest. Still very highly owned for a 9-game MLB slate. That is just such high ownership. I probably have 60% for all I know. Again, I have no idea what I actually ended up playing. We'll see. Yeah, aggressive goose. Corbin slate breaker. Exactly. Corbin just absolutely demolishing the slate. Is that the only pitcher going so far? Looks like. Garrett Cole came in at 47% owned. Aaron Nola down at 12%. It's not showing me any ownership on Pablo Lopez. I've never seen that before. There's no way that he's 0% owned, but what DraftKings is showing me is 0% for Pablo Lopez. Same thing for Jesus Luzardo. I don't know what the deal is there. Pablo 7.9% on FanDuel, Terry says. Yeah, I got to start playing that FanDuel contest again. I did. It was probably my favorite baseball contest, to be honest, was the largest field, because they do the cheap buy-in, huge field tournaments on FanDuel that I kind of enjoy. That's kind of generally my strength at DFS, is those largest field contests. And if they're not that much to enter, I think they're kind of fun. As we were talking about yesterday, though, I think also some pros, from what I could see, from what I'm guessing, some pros are experimenting more in those FanDuel streets with the lower buy-in, which also adds some EV to it for the rest of us if we've got people experimenting in there. I could be totally off base on that they're experimenting. Maybe they have run some analysis and found like weird stacks to be more profitable, but I kind of suspect that there are some pros who are actually just experimenting a little bit. Oh, they cancel all those? Don't even bother looking for them, Terry says. I don't believe you. All right. We're seeing some movement, some scores happening here. As if Terry doesn't want me in his contest. I don't want Terry in my contest. Terry, one of the best to ever do it in baseball, in particular. I mean, in general, but in baseball especially, just knows everything about everything. All right. Anything else we need to talk about here? I got another show in 15 minutes, so I should probably head out, maybe take a drink of water, unless there is anything else you guys want to look at in the tools. Tell me what you want to look at tomorrow. I guess we've got a couple minutes. Do you guys want to look at, like, should we try to build some lineups on the show, like outside of using the lineup builder? I was thinking about doing that on the show, and then because it was live before lock, it was a little bit tough to get into it. But I was thinking we could do maybe a little lineup builder, maybe look at lineup generator. Buxton 10% on FanDuel. Interesting. I don't know. It's such a tough spot in Miami, but he is Byron Buxton. Love that guy. Well, I think I am going to close out the show. I don't think I have any kind of music to play here at the end. Let me double check that. Do I have any kind of play out music? I don't know. End card, stochastic. Yeah, I'm not gonna explore it because I don't really know what I'm doing well enough there. I think enough of you have left that we don't need to continue the stream, but thank you to all of you who are still here. How lineup generator compares to your top crunch would be cool. That's a good idea. We can take a look at what the lineups that lineup generator spits out relative to some in my crunch. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Maybe we should check that out. I mean, they're going to be clearly different lineups. So you can make like millions of plus EV lineups, I think, in MLB on large MLB sites in general. So they're not going to be the same exact thing, but Sportsbook wants me to keep the same format with looking at Fantasy Cruncher. I don't know. I do want to be somewhat useful for hand builders as well. So I can do a mix of Fantasy Cruncher and hand building, I think is going to be a fine format. And looking at the tools, I mean, I wasn't trying to do a Fantasy Cruncher tutorial on Saturday. I think I maybe started the show wrong by jumping into Fantasy Cruncher because I had people that wanted to see how I build in Fantasy Cruncher. So I wanted to show that off right away. But I think that there are ways to talk about it in a way that helps everybody. I'm hoping, looking at the tools. So I'll try to do a mix there. But yeah, I'll continue to do some Fantasy Cruncher work as well. Anyway, I am going to head out 15 minutes from now. Laffy and I will be on the NBA Underdog Show. We're going to do a couple drafts for the daily stuff. We'll look at some picks for those of you who, I guess, maybe everybody can play on Underdog. I don't know. We're going to make some picks on Underdog using BetPro, make out some drafts, and then we'll from there. And then tonight, I'll see you on NBA Live Before Lock. For those of you who are playing NBA as well, we're going to have Deeper Dive Live Before Lock. Of course, check out Odd Shopper channel, the Odd Shop at 4 Eastern. If you are sports betting, I guess it's useful just for people who have sports betting in their state, and then also the rest of us who do have things like Prize Picks, Notice Advantage. It's useful for that as well. So check that out. Jordan Klein, who is this man without a flannel? I'm guessing Jordan Klein is producing my next show. So I will see you in a matter of minutes, Jordan. All right. Thank you guys so much for sticking around on this show. Really enjoy doing it. And I will be back tomorrow, I think, for another Live Before Lock. I think we have another early slate, so we'll do another Live Before Lock. Anyway, really appreciate you guys. And I will see you in 15 minutes, some of you, and then some of you later on. Good luck today.